Ready for a deep dive into Shakespeare?
Always.
We're cracking open two of his most iconic plays,
Uh,
As You Like It and The Merchant of Venice, to explore how he crafted some seriously subversive female characters, Rosalind and Portia. Get ready to be surprised by just how much these women were pushing boundaries way back in the Elizabethan era.
what's fascinating about both Rosalind and Portia is that they refuse to be confined by the limited roles society tries to impose on them.
Exactly. And you can see how Shakespeare really emphasizes this through the clever tool of disguise. I mean, Rosalind literally transforms herself into a man calling herself Ganymede to escape a sticky situation at court and flee to the forest of Arden. It's bold, it's brilliant, and it lets her completely flip the script on what's expected of women in her world.
Disguise becomes her passport to freedom. Not only can she move about as she pleases, but it also gives her a voice and a platform to challenge societal norms head-on. Think about it. She ends up counseling her future husband, Orlando, on how to woo her all while he's completely oblivious to her true identity.
It's like Shakespeare's giving us this delicious layer of dramatic irony where the audience is in on the joke, but the characters on stage are totally clueless.
Precisely. And through this clever setup, Shakespeare allows Rosalind to offer some surprisingly insightful commentary on the dynamics between men and women. One of my favorite lines is when she quips, "Men are April when they woo, December when they wed." She's not just being witty, she's cutting right to the heart of male inconsistency in relationships, this tendency to be all fire and passion during courtship, and then, well, a bit frosty once they've secured the prize.
Yeah, I'm sure plenty of people listening can relate to that sentiment even centuries later. It's a timeless observation about the complexities of love and the way societal expectations shape our behaviors.
Absolutely. But there's even more to unpack here.
Right.
By having Rosalind embody this male persona, Shakespeare starts to blur the lines between what was considered masculine and feminine in his time. He's playing with the very idea of gender fluidity centuries before these concepts entered mainstream conversations.
So it's not just about Rosalind finding love. It's about her using this disguise to explore a whole range of identities and challenge the rigid boxes society tries to put people in.
Exactly. And it's important to remember the context of the Elizabethan era, where women were largely expected to be submissive, silent, and certainly not dispensing wisdom on love and relationships while disguised as a man. Through Rosalind, Shakespeare gives us a glimpse of a woman who refuses to be silenced, who uses her wit and intelligence to carve out her own space in a world dominated by men.
And now let's turn our attention to Portia. She's facing a different set of constraints, but is no less determined to take control of her own destiny. As a wealthy heiress, she's bound by this bizarre casket game devised by her late father, where potential suitors have to choose the right casket to win her hand in marriage. Can you imagine?
It sounds like something straight out of a fairy tale, but it highlights the very real lack of autonomy women faced in Shakespeare's time, especially when it came to marriage. They were essentially treated as property, their futures decided by men.
But here's the thing. Portia's far too clever to just sit back and let fate decide her future. You see her subtly manipulating the game, using her wit and intelligence to steer things in a direction that aligns with her own desires.
One example that stands out is how she dismisses a potential suitor solely based on his appearance. It's a small act of defiance, but it shows that she's not just passively accepting the rules of this ridiculous game. She's actively asserting her own preferences and making her voice heard, even if it's in a veiled way.
And then things get really interesting when Portia takes disguise to a whole new level. She transforms herself into a male lawyer going by the name Balthazar to defend her friend Antonio in a high-stakes court case. Talk about a power move.
This is where we see Portia's intellect and strategic thinking on full display. She's not just playing dress-up, she's immersing herself in the male-dominated world of law and using her knowledge to outwit her opponent, Shylock.
And her famous line during the trial, "The quality of mercy is not strained," is just incredible. It's more than just a legal tactic. It's a powerful statement about justice and compassion that still resonates with us today.
It speaks to a deeper understanding of human nature, the idea that true justice cannot exist without mercy. Portia is challenging the rigidity of the law, arguing for a more nuanced approach that takes into account the complexities of the situation.
So we have these two extraordinary women, both utilizing disguise to navigate a world that constantly tries to limit them. But their approaches and motivations are quite distinct, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. While Rosalind's disguise is about finding personal freedom and exploring different facets of her identity, Portia's is more about navigating the complexities of the legal system and challenging the very foundations of justice.
It's as though Shakespeare is showing us two sides of the same coin. Both Rosalind and Portia expose the limitations placed on women in their society, but they do so through different means. Rosalind relies on wit and playful manipulation, while Portia takes a more direct and strategic approach, wielding her intellect like a weapon.
And what's truly remarkable is that Shakespeare places these women at the very heart of their respective plays. They are not simply supporting characters, they are the driving forces behind the resolutions. It's as if he's acknowledging their power and agency in a way that was truly groundbreaking for his time.
He's making a bold statement about what women are capable of achieving, even within a patriarchal society that constantly seeks to confine them.
And that's a message that continues to resonate with audiences centuries later, reminding us that true strength and intelligence transcend gender.
I think that's a perfect place to pause for now. We've laid the groundwork for understanding how Rosalind and Portia use disguise to challenge societal norms and pave their own paths. But we've only just scratched the surface of what makes these characters so compelling.
Indeed, there's much more to explore, especially when we delve into the specific ways they critique men and their behavior, and how their actions resonate with contemporary issues of gender inequality.
It's fascinating how both Rosalind and Portia, while disguised, don't shy away from critiquing men and their behavior, like they're using their newfound freedom to hold up a mirror to the flaws and inconsistencies of the men around them.
Their methods, though, are strikingly different. Rosalind, as Ganymede, takes a more playful approach. She teases Orlando about the fickle nature of men in love, almost like she's giving him a masterclass in how to be a better partner.
And the best part is, Orlando has no clue he's being schooled by the very woman he's trying to win over. Shakespeare really plays with this dramatic irony to create these hilarious yet thought-provoking scenes.
It's brilliant. Through these interactions, Rosalind exposes the gap between the idealized image of romantic love and the reality of male behavior. She's not afraid to point out their inconsistencies, their tendency to prioritize appearances over substance.
Makes you wonder if Shakespeare was using Rosalind as a mouthpiece to express some of his own observations about the complexities of relationships and the often unrealistic expectations placed upon women.
It's certainly a possibility, after all. Shakespeare was a keen observer of human nature, and his plays are full of insights into the follies and foibles of both men and women.
But what about Portia? Her critique of men seems to take a sharper, more direct approach, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Think about her confrontation with Shylock in the courtroom. She dissects his arguments, exposes his hypocrisy, and ultimately uses the law itself to turn his own demands against him.
It's a brilliant display of legal strategy, but it's also a scathing indictment of the kind of rigid thinking that often characterizes those in positions of power, particularly men.
Portia's critique isn't limited to Shylock, though. She also challenges the assumptions and prejudices of the other men in the courtroom, including the Duke himself. She's not afraid to speak truth to power, even when it means risking her own safety.
And it's through these challenges that she reveals a deeper understanding of justice, one that goes beyond the letter of the law to embrace compassion and mercy.
Her famous line, "The quality of mercy is not strained," encapsulates this perfectly. She's arguing for a more nuanced and humane approach to justice, one that acknowledges the complexities of human emotions and motivations.
It's a powerful message that transcends the context of the play and speaks to the need for empathy and understanding in all our dealings with each other.
Now let's shift gears a bit and consider another intriguing aspect of these characters. They not only challenge traditional gender roles through their actions, but also embody certain qualities that were typically associated with masculinity in Shakespeare's time.
You're right. Rosalind, for example, displays remarkable leadership qualities throughout the play. When she's in the Forest of Arden, she takes charge, mediating disputes between characters, orchestrating reconciliations, and essentially becoming the orchestrator of her own happy ending.
And let's not forget how she manipulates situations to her advantage, cleverly using language and disguise to achieve her goals. These are all qualities that were often attributed to men in positions of authority.
And then there's Portia, who demonstrates incredible intellectual prowess and a strategic mind that allows her to triumph in the courtroom. It's as if Shakespeare is deliberately blurring the lines between what was considered masculine and feminine, suggesting that these qualities are not inherently bound to gender, but can be found in both men and women.
Exactly. He's presenting a more fluid and multifaceted view of human nature, one that challenges the rigid gender binaries of his time.
And it's not just about individual characters. Through their actions and their words, both Rosalind and Portia expose the limitations and hypocrisies of the patriarchal system that seeks to define their roles and restrict their potential.
Think about it. These women are not simply rebelling against societal norms. They're actively dismantling them, using their intelligence, wit, and courage to create a space for themselves where they can thrive on their own terms.
And in doing so, they offer a powerful vision of a world where gender is not a barrier to achievement, where women are not relegated to the sidelines but are active participants in shaping their own destinies and influencing the course of events.
It's a vision that continues to inspire us today, reminding us that the fight for gender equality is far from over, that we must continue to challenge stereotypes and push for a world where everyone, regardless of gender, has the opportunity to reach their full potential.
Now, taking a step back, what do you think Shakespeare's overarching message is with these two characters?
Well, I believe he's making a bold statement about the inherent capabilities of women. He's showing us that they can be intelligent, resourceful, quick-witted, and courageous.
It's incredible to think that he was portraying women this way during a time when they were largely expected to be subservient and silent.
And it's not just about showcasing their strengths, it's about demonstrating their capacity for leadership, for critical thinking, for challenging the status quo.
They're not just characters in a play. They're agents of change, pushing the boundaries of what was considered acceptable for women in their society.
Rosalind and Portia, despite the limitations imposed upon them, find ways to assert their agency, challenge the rules, and ultimately leave their mark on the world around them.
And through them, Shakespeare invites us, the audience, to question our own assumptions about gender, to recognize the inherent worth and potential in every individual, regardless of their sex, and to strive for a world where everyone has the freedom to pursue their dreams and make their mark on the world.
It's a call to action that resonates just as strongly today as it did centuries ago.
So as we wrap up our exploration of these two remarkable characters, what key takeaway would you leave our listener with?
I think it's this. Rosalind and Portia are not just characters from a bygone era. They are timeless symbols of the human spirit's ability to transcend limitations, to challenge expectations, and to fight for a more just and equitable world.
They remind us that the fight for gender equality is an ongoing journey, one that requires constant vigilance, courage, and a willingness to challenge the status quo.
And most importantly, they show us that change is possible even in the face of seemingly insurmountable obstacles.
You know, it's mind-blowing to think that Shakespeare was crafting these dynamic women characters hundreds of years ago, yet they feel so relevant to the conversations we're having about gender roles and equality today.
That's a testament to Shakespeare's genius, isn't it? His ability to tap into those universal human experiences, those timeless struggles for autonomy and recognition, is what makes his works resonate across centuries.
Absolutely. But it also makes you kind of pause and reflect on how far we've come as a society when it comes to gender equality, or perhaps how far we still have to go.
It's a complex question, and there's no easy answer. On the one hand, we can celebrate the strides that have been made. Women have gained rights that were once unimaginable. The right to vote, to own property, to pursue education and careers on their own terms. We've seen women shatter glass ceilings in fields that were traditionally dominated by men.
You only have to look around to see women leading in politics, business, science, the arts, you name it. It's incredibly inspiring to see those barriers being broken down.
It truly is. But at the same time, it's impossible to ignore the fact that we still live in a world where women face discrimination, harassment, and violence simply because of their gender. The wage gap persists, and women remain underrepresented in positions of power.
It's like we're still wrestling with some of the very same issues that Shakespeare was exploring in his plays centuries ago. The struggle for true equality is far from over.
And that's precisely why Rosalind and Portia remain such powerful figures. They serve as constant reminders that the fight for equality requires ongoing effort, vigilance, and a willingness to challenge the status quo.
They're like beacons, urging us to keep pushing for change, to speak out against injustice, and to never settle for anything less than a world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive regardless of gender.
They also teach us that true strength lies not in conforming to expectations, but in embracing our individuality, our unique talents, and our perspectives, even when they challenge conventional norms.
Isn't that a powerful message for all of us, regardless of gender? To step outside those boxes society tries to put us in and forge our own paths.
Absolutely. Shakespeare's subversive women challenge us all to rethink our assumptions about gender, to celebrate diversity, and to strive for a world where everyone has the freedom to reach their full potential.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Shakespeare's world and the enduring legacy of Rosalind and Portia, what's something you'd like to leave our listener pondering?
I think the most important takeaway is this. What if we all embraced a little bit of that subversive spirit embodied by Rosalind and Portia? What if we challenged those outdated rules and expectations that limit our potential both individually and as a society?
It's about asking ourselves, Where do I see those limitations in my own life, and how can I push beyond them?
Exactly. And it's about using our voices to advocate for a world where everyone has the opportunity to flourish, regardless of gender.
It's about channeling that Shakespearean spirit of audacity and challenging the status quo.
I have a feeling that if we all dared to be a bit more like Rosalind and Portia, the world would be a far more interesting and equitable place.
And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder that thought. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into Shakespeare's subversive women. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep pushing those boundaries.